Hello and welcome. Nostalgia. Every so often, there will be a piece of media out there that defines a generation. Whether it's a film, TV shows, music, literature, or in this case, video games. Now, whether memes are attached to it is completely another subject. But no doubt that there's something that you and a group of friends can look back on retrospectively and say, oh hell yeah, I grew up with that thing. I love that stupid thing. And in just about all of my close friendships, whether they're built on completely different hobbies or interests, almost all of them, and including other people in the early 2000s, have almost certainly played and loved Sonic Adventure 2. And there are a handful of reasons why this game is remembered so fondly by fans. The characters, the stages, the plot, the chows, the freaking amazing soundtrack. This game had such an extreme and cool factor, and as a 6-year-old who played the hell out of Sonic the Hedgehog 3, this game really blew me away. Sonic is on a Nintendo console, Sonic is sledding down San Francisco, Tails' plane turns into a freaking mech, Knuckles is Sonic's friend? Again, my knowledge is only constrained to Sonic 3. You get to play as Eggman and the villains? Heck yeah, that's so awesome! This game is truly a masterpiece and was— oh, wait, sorry. I have my nostalgia glasses on for a minute. Let me just take those off. Hey, what do you know? Sonic Adventure 2 is still a great game. There are a few smudges over here, though. Okay, so replaying this game and having a more critical eye, there are some glaring flaws that I noticed this time around that younger me didn't really see. But Sonic Adventure 2 has, to this day, been my favorite Sonic game, and to celebrate the game's 20th anniversary, I figured now would be the perfect time to play through it, make a video, completely miss the deadline of the anniversary to post said video, and for the first time 100% complete it. So let's have a retrospective look at Sonic Adventure 2 Battle. Prior to the development of the Blue Blur's second adventure onto the Dreamcast, in 1999, Sonic Team, the Japanese studio behind every mainline Sonic game up to this point, was split into a second division, Sonic Team USA. A division led by director Takashi Iizuka and 11 other members. This branch focused on game development, English translations, and US marketing. Sonic Team USA, which was later rebranded to Sega Studios USA in 2004 and then defunct in 2008, became the primary studio of Sonic titles during the aughts, with Sonic Adventure 2 being the studio's first project. Sonic Adventure 2 began shortly after the American release of Sonic Adventure 1 for the Dreamcast in 1999. Along with the director Takashi Iizuka, the game was produced by Yuji Naka, with a new studio located in San Francisco, California, where the team took heavy inspirations from the city, such as the Golden Gate Bridge and the San Francisco Bay Area. Another location for inspiration was Yosemite National Park, where the team would vacation during the game's development. Sonic Team USA wanted to give Sonic a, quote, more American flavor, which, up to this point, American Sonic was marketed with his cocky, too cool attitude compared to his more tame Japanese counterpart. The highest priority of the development team was maintaining a stable frame rate of 60 FPS. Being more familiar with the Dreamcast's hardware this time around, the team had a much more easier time developing the game, and structured the level design to be more streamlined than its predecessor. The development team designed Adventure 2 to be more action-oriented compared to its first entry. The team also gave Sonic a variety of new actions, making the gameplay feel much faster. Sonic Adventure 2 was first publicly announced at E3 2000 with what I would call the most 2000s form of advertising out there. In the promotional material and during the early development, Naka stated the only playable characters for Sonic Adventure 2 would be Sonic, Knuckles, and Eggman. After an outcry from fans of where other known characters were, Tails, as well as the newcomers Shadow and Rouge, were then announced playable later in development. It's also believed that their inclusion is also why half the stages recycle assets from other levels. Sonic Adventure 2 featured billboard advertisements for soap shoes. Sonic also wore shoes that strongly represented the Scorcher/Nitro design in Adventure 2. Without going too far into it, Soap was a real-life brand of shoes modified to allow the wearers to grind on rails, also dubbed as soaping. These shoes were created by Chris Morris in 1997. However, Morris and Soap didn't see the mass appeal that they were hoping to achieve, and by 2002 went bankrupt and fell into obscurity. But at least their legacy will live on as the one time Sonic had different shoes. This sponsorship just reeks of early 2000s extreme and cool skater kid aesthetic, and I freaking love this garbage. Sonic being able to grind on rails became a staple in his moveset in future titles. In the 2012 port of Sonic Adventure 2, all ads regarding to soap were removed, though the pictures can still be found in the source files. Sonic's forgotten soap shoes made a triumphant return as optional footwear for the Avatar character to wear in Sonic Forces. Sonic Adventure 2 released worldwide on June 23, 2001 for the Sega Dreamcast, marking Sonic's 10th anniversary as well as a send-off to Sega's sinking ship of a console. However, the game received positive reception from multiple publications such as Edge, GamePro, and IGN, applauding the three styles of gameplay, visuals, and soundtrack. However, some publications such as GameSpot noting the bad camera controls and overly ambitious and lackluster story. 8 months later, Sonic Adventure 2 would receive a second chance on the Nintendo GameCube as Sonic Adventure 2 Battle on February 11, 2002. With enhancements and new mechanics, and received an HD port on PS3, Xbox 360, and Steam on October 2nd, 5th, and November 19th, 2012 respectively. As of 2002, Sonic Adventure 2 would end up selling 498,771 copies on the Dreamcast in both the United States and Japan. The GameCube port only sold 192,186 copies in Japan and over 100,000 copies in Europe, but managed to sell 1.44 million copies in the United States as of 2007, making it one of the best-selling games for the console. Following Sonic Adventure 2, Shadow the Hedgehog was brought back for Sonic Heroes and future titles due to fan reception, as well as his own spin-off title, which was, Damn, not here! The plot of Adventure 2 was structured into an arc for the second season of the Sonic X anime, and in 2011, the fan-favorite City Escape level, along with the Shadow Battle, were included in Sonic Generations, the franchise's 20th anniversary. Radical Highway and the Bio Lizard Battle were also included in the 3DS version. There are three main types of stages in the game: the speed, platform-focused Sonic and Shadow levels, the mech shooter Tails and Eggman missions, and the open treasure hunting Knuckles and Rouge stages. The Sonic and Shadow levels, I think, are the most memorable to players and arguably the most fun. As you'd expect, these stages require the player to run as fast as possible to the goal, with gun robots and platforming challenges getting in the way. Rings are much more abundant in these levels. Control-wise, Sonic and Shadow play as they should. Running and going fast feels incredibly great, and homing attack across multiple enemies and building up your score is really satisfying. Spin dashing to go at full speed is also great for instances where you've made dead stops. Grinding on rails, making the perfect jumps, taking shortcuts, taking risks to get higher scores, all of these elements really make these stages fun to replay. However, onto the issues. Sometimes the player will need to lightspeed dash along rings, and more often than not, trying to lightspeed dash will either result Sonic and Shadow somersaulting, or, specifically for Sonic, will bounce and just go straight down. Having a magnetic shield can break the ring chains, making these sections make it or break it situations. Trying to jump from one rail to another is also unpredictable. Either they'll make the jump, or they'll completely leap off into the abyss. Damn, not here! A few specific stage nitpicks. Pyramid Cave requires Sonic to stop and carry screw keys. Making Sonic stop is difficult because he moves way too quickly and will often just somersault instead when you're trying to pick up by pressing B. If you're like me and you're trying to complete these stages as fast as possible, this will drive you up the wall. Crazy Gadget also requires him to completely stop and flip gravity switches. Just like Pyramid Cave, you have to come to a complete dead stop to flip the switch, or else he'll just somersault everywhere and waste time. This one isn't a complaint, but considering City Escape started with sledboarding along with Metal Harbor, the first two stages in the game, it was a missed opportunity to not have Sonic come to a full circle and sledboard one last time during Final Rush. They could have just easily put it at the end sequence. In Skyrail, sometimes Shadow will homing attack a spring unintentionally, and in Final Chase, oh god, whose ever idea this was, shame on you. The game will not know whether to make Shadow's gravity align with the cylinders or not, causing him to glitch back and forth or send you off flying into the atmosphere. Due to the camera and gravity mechanics, this level completely messed with my depth perception, making platforming just terrible. Getting A rank on this stage was an absolute nightmare. Overall though, these stages were fun, and despite my specific criticisms, they are still a blast to play through. Out of the two, Sonic definitely had the better levels. In most of Sonic's levels, you never really lost your momentum and never had to stop and wait, unless if you're exploring the level for optional rewards, which I will get into later. I think forcing the player to stop in a Sonic game hinders the gotta go fast ethos of the series. The Tails and Eggman mech levels are also really enjoyable. These stages mostly consist of and these two share the run-and-gun gameplay style of E102 Gamma from Sonic Adventure 1. Like the Sonic and Shadow levels, you progress through these stages till you make it to the end goal. These stages are more score-oriented than the others and require much higher numbers to achieve A rank. Locking onto multiple enemies at the same time grants the player higher bonus points. Creating chains tends to be a gamble, but really adds to the experience. However, it's also really devastating if you wait too long and you lose your chain or if you get hit. Unlike the other two gameplay modes, you don't instantly die if you're hit without any rings. You have a health meter, and you will get hit, like, a lot in these levels. And a lot of times, these will be from enemies you won't see coming unless if you have the stage memorized, which is kind of unfair. Despite being slower than Sonic and Shadow, running and picking up momentum as Tails and Eggman and speeding through these levels, hovering and taking shortcuts is incredibly satisfying. However, unlike the rest of the cast's levels where you're rewarded by clearing the stages as fast as possible, in the Tails and Eggman levels, you have to slow down and gun down as many enemies as possible if you're going for A rank. If you're trying to speedrun through these levels, you will score between E to C at best. This isn't a big deal if you're not focusing on A ranking stages, but it does really sting because running and gunning as fast as possible feels so gratifying. One thing that does suck though is that if you lock into multiple enemies but get hit before the score bonus appears, you won't be rewarded for your chain. A sadistic example of this is Cosmic Wall Hard Mode, where there'll be tons of artificial chaoses which will hit you on the rail shooting parts, ruining your score if you're not ready for them. Gameplay wise though, and this might be a shock to everyone, myself included, but these levels were actually the least jank. I found myself not glitching out as much when compared to the other game modes. When I was younger, I always found the Tails and Eggman levels to be a bit overwhelming and I would die a lot. That's also because I sucked at video games. But these levels really grew on me the more I played them this time around. Unlike a certain other game in this series, I think my opinion on these stages would be a lot more negative if they lasted way longer than the fast-paced Sonic and Shadow levels. Except Cosmic Wall. Oh god, why is this stage 10 minutes long? I had to play this level on hard mode 8 freaking times to get A rank! I felt that the Eggman levels were overall more satisfying than the Tails ones. While Foxboy had the much better OST, Eggman's levels offered much more targets to destroy and bigger combo chains to make. Being the man of destruction, this is definitely fitting. The Knuckles and Rouge stages are treasure hunting levels. In these stages, you have to find 3 pieces of the Master Emerald, or keys, or Chaos Emeralds. Come to think of it, only Rouge's first and last level involves finding the Master Emerald shards. Weird. Most of these stages aren't too difficult, and time-wise are like the rest if you know where to look. There are hint computers scattered around the levels helping players to find the hidden emerald shards much easier, but at the cost of score bonuses. Some stages are much larger than others, making these more essential to first-timers. You are rewarded bonus points depending on how quickly you find the hidden emeralds. As you get closer to the meter, it will go from green to yellow to red. In the later stages, some of these emeralds will be hiding in the walls or ground and need to be dug up. Some of the things that I wish were different, in Adventure 1's Knuckles levels, your meter for all 3 emeralds would go off at once, making you find the emeralds in any order that you wish. While it is still possible in Adventure 2, you are given no indication if you're nearby one of the other emerald shards. Picking them up without any hints and seeing them is just a nice source of dopamine, but it's pretty uncommon. I get that if this was done, the hint monitor mechanic would need to be restructured, but it's still a change I think the devs should have considered, especially for the fact that you have stages like Meteor Herd and Pumpkin Hill, which are huge time-consuming levels. Control-wise, Knuckles and Rouge play fine, their run speed is really quick, and gliding takes up about 80% of the gameplay, making searching pretty easy. Diving and quickly fast-falling is a feature that you don't really think about until you're writing a script like this, but this mechanic is such a great addition, and it really keeps the momentum going. However, there are bugs. Sometimes grabbing onto a wall or a ramp surface can be glitchy. This will make Knuckles or Rouge bug out, as the game won't know whether to put them in a climbing or standing position. So you'll just fall and have to quickly react and try to grab the wall again. Combat isn't really a priority in these levels, but fighting is just spamming the B button while trying not to get hit. You can also destroy robots by gliding into them. In order to get A rank in a handful of these stages, familiarity is needed. In almost all of these stages, I had no issues. Except Mad Space.
Space madness.
This level is way too huge for its own good, and the location of each emerald is completely RNG. Sometimes the emerald shards will be way above the level, or at the very bottom. This made A rank an absolute dreadful experience, and I had to do it a second time for the time trial mission. Overall though, these levels weren't too bad either, but I do find the other two gameplay styles to be more entertaining. The Knuckles levels are certainly more memorable and enjoyable, but besides Mad Space and Meteor Herd, these levels were fun and they didn't bog down the momentum of the game. One of Tails and Rouge's missions is a timed kart racing level, Route 101 and 205 respectively. And the kart racing is, yeah, it's pretty bad. Like, when you're driving, you either slightly turn and go straight, or you drift like you've blown off all your tires and driving through an oil puddle while it's also on ice. It's not unplayable by any means, and honestly, these levels are kind of fun, depending on who you ask. But considering that there's a whole kart racing game mode tied to it as well, it's really stiff and clunky. Also, this is just a nitpick, but growing up with the GameCube controller, pressing Y to boost was comfortable button placement. It works. On a 360 controller, however, my thumb cannot reach the Y button while also driving. This sounds like a dumb complaint, but considering the second you take off the A button and it becomes an issue. This could have easily been resolved if they just mapped the boost to X. The bonus mission of not hitting the other cars and the walls was also really tough and stress-inducing due to the controls. But hey, at least we found the president. At the end of each stage, you're ranked based on your score and are given time bonuses based on how quickly you finish the level. These ranks are ranged from A to E. On the first completion of each mission, you're awarded an emblem, with the game having a total of 180. One of the things I do applaud Sonic Adventure 2 is that between all of these gameplay styles, none of them overstay their welcome. Each stage lasts roughly 3 to 5 minutes and are spread out pretty evenly throughout the 3 campaigns. I'll go into the fever dream that is the plot later, but there are 3 campaigns: the Hero Story, which has 16 action stages between Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles, and the Dark Story, which has 14 levels between Shadow, Eggman, and Rouge. And finally, the short Last Story, which blends the two together. These stories also include a few boss battles as well. Overall, completing the main campaign should take the player roughly 5 hours, which for some players, that might just be the whole experience and call it a day. But Sonic Adventure 2 is one of the few games I can think of when I say post-game is the game. Each stage contains 4 additional challenges to the player. Mission 2 requires you to collect 100 rings, Mission 3 is to find a lost Chao hidden somewhere throughout the level, Mission 4 is to complete the stage within a time limit and no checkpoints, and finally the last mission is a hard mode which redesigns some of the stage layouts and hazards and puts harder enemies to deal with. All these incentivizes the player to replay these levels and collect more emblems. The second and third mission are also graded by how quickly you complete these levels, which makes speedrunning them an absolute blast. Something that I personally feel that the modern boost formula Sonic games don't really offer the player anymore is the sense of exploration within each stage. You're fully able to move around within each level, and in a lot of them there are alternate paths and shortcuts that you can take or more rings to collect. Exploring around these stages rewards the player with animals to find, shell boxes to break open, or mystic ruins to locate. These in particular are needed for almost all of the Lost Child missions. With the exception of Route 101 and 205, each stage has an upgradable power-up to give the player, such as Lightspeed Dash for Sonic and Hovering for Tails. 17 out of the 28 upgrades are completely optional and are hidden from the usual path. Some of these upgrades can give the player access to new locations from previous stages, or allow them to navigate at a much more efficient pace. Also, in the Dreamcast and 2012 ports of Sonic Adventure 2, you can find Big the Cat just vibing around in almost every level. So you have these action stages, emblems to collect, and the usage of exploration, finding rings and picking up animals. But what ties it all together? What keeps the player wanting to come back to these levels once they've finished the main campaign? You know where this is going. It's time to talk about the Chao world. Sonic Adventure 1 introduced the Chao Garden mechanic, which was a side mode that allowed players to interact with these little creatures called Chaos. These cute little guys were virtual pets that you can feed and take care of with a ton of customization. Sonic Adventure 2 took this concept and improved it tenfold. Each Chao has a stat for their swimming, flying, running, and power abilities, as well as their stamina. You can increase the swimming, flying, running, and power stats of your Chaos by giving them animals that you found hidden across the action stages, or chaos drives found within gun robots. Stamina is increased by feeding your Chao. However, they're a little bastards sometimes and will throw their fruit behind them. You have to show them who's boss by shoving food down their throat. Gary! You are gonna finish your dessert and you are gonna like it! You can pet your chows. You can play with your chows. You can feed your chows. You can take your chows to school. You can physically assault and bully your chows. You can race your chows. You can enter your chows in the karate tournament. You can abandon your chows, leaving them with emotional wounds that will never heal. There's a lot to unpack here. Inside the chow kindergarten, there's the classroom, which you can drop off your chow to learn new things, such as how to sing, dance, or draw. This also affects their intelligence in some of the later races. The clinic allows you to view your chow's stats, as well as diagnose them if they're sick. The fortune teller will allow you to name your chow, and the office will give you tips on how to raise your chows. The black market also allows the player to purchase fruits, seeds, different colored chow eggs, and hats to put on them. With all the rings that you've collected during the action stages, this alone makes replaying these levels and collecting as many rings as possible feel so rewarding. But that's not all. As you collect more emblems, the black market will have more rare items and new egg colors to offer. If you're already invested in raising your chows, then this feature will keep you playing for hours. Unlike in Sonic Adventure 1, where you have to go out of your way in the hub world to go to the chow gardens, in Adventure 2, each stage has 3 chow boxes, one with a chow key, 4 animals, and a rare animal if the player breaks open all 3. Should the player pick up a chow key within an action stage, the game will automatically send them to the chow garden as soon as the level is over, completely streamlining the process. Whether you're replaying the stages to collect rings, more emblems, or finding animals to boost stats, the chow garden is the other focal point which gives the game the fun replay value and what I believe has made Sonic Adventure 2 so special compared to any other game in the franchise. I'm sure a lot of players back in the day, myself included, just raised a bunch of chows and had a great time, but there's a lot of complex details and care put into this mechanic. So for starters, if you raise a baby chow with hero characters, Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles, that chow will start to change shape and will eventually become a hero chow, and vice versa for the dark characters. You can also have neutral chows if you raise them with both. There's also the hero, neutral, and dark gardens, which can store 8 chows each. What I didn't understand when I was 6 is that you can also have type-specific chows: swim, fly, run, and power, which will change the shape and specialize in that attribute. And you can alter their shape again to make them even better at said attribute or a completely different one. Shout out to Sapphire Chow for this in-depth video guide. I also learned about the exploit of dropping animals and reusing them. I know that this is not the intended way to play the game, but I wish younger me knew about this. Look, I wouldn't have raised 8 chows to level 99 without this exploit. I just don't have that kind of time anymore. Speaking of which, here are my babies: Gremlin, Goober, Tamale, Zoink, Avocado, Thwomp, Mr. Bone, and Daryl. At the age of 5, or roughly 29 hours in the chow garden, your chow will enter a cocoon and will either be reincarnated if they had a happy life, or they will die. As a kid, it was heartbreaking having my chows die on me. And no, none of my chows reincarnated. I mean, look at my old GameCube discs. You really think 6-year-old me was capable of raising a dumb animal? Let's have a moment of silence to pay our respects to all the forgotten dead chows, Tamagotchis, Neopets, Webkins, and Nintendogs out there. And lastly, you can enter your chows in races and karate tournaments, which will reward the player with a few emblems on first completion. In the races, your chow's performance is based on their stats, and if they have enough stamina, they can be encouraged to run faster by pressing A. Now, I did play these races after my chow stats were completely maxed out, which isn't the proper way to do this. However, in the beginning races, you have to play each course 3 times and 5 times in the jewel races. I get that the idea is to see just how ready your chow is, but this felt like padding for the sake of padding. I think this should have been like the challenge, hero, and dark races where it's just 1 per course, or allowing the player to select which difficulty from the get-go and not having to unlock them one by one. The chow karate, much like the races, goes based on your chow stats, and there are 4 tournaments, each varying in difficulty. After I finished raising my chows, I had them all compete for my love. Mr. Bones was proven to be the best fighter, while Thwomp was the best racer. Though to be fair, the party mode diamond race kinda cheats by only having 1 square fruit on the board, but nevertheless, they are the victors and they are worthy of my love. And finally, the multiplayer. As a kid, me and my siblings would play the hell out of this mode. However, and I don't know about you guys, but for me, it's hard to round up people to play a multiplayer mode of a single player game nowadays. After replaying the multiplayer with my sister for about 2 hours, here are my thoughts. The racing stages, while fun, are really unbalanced. Collecting 20 rings grants the player to speed up, 40 to stop time to the other player, and 60 to send a direct attack to them. And this cycle then continues from 80, 100, 120, and so on. The player that's ahead has an unfair advantage as they're taking more rings before the other player does, giving them a chance to mess with them first. Once the leading player has reached 60 rings, they can send an attack to the losing player, causing them to lose their rings, preventing a chance to attack and catch up. And the leading player will just continue to collect more and more rings, essentially bullying the losing player. An honest strategy for the losing player is just to jump off an edge and respawn at the most recent checkpoint if they're too far behind. That is, if the leading player isn't evil. Respawning does automatically give the player a chance to attack or stop time to the other player though, and this might be, honestly, the only way to win under certain circumstances. This mode would have been a lot better if they just nerfed the player who was in first. The mech battle ones are honestly the least exciting. It tends to come down to just who can spam B the fastest and avoid bullets. There isn't really much strategy to it. The rounds tend to end within 30 seconds or so. You can get multiple missiles and lasers if you collect a ton of rings, but you're more than likely going to get hit before you do so. Overall, it's just... I think this mode would have been a lot better if you were competing for a higher score and throwing in a ton of robots to destroy. Honestly, what I really wasn't expecting was that the treasure hunting levels were actually the most fun to play. It is the best 2 out of 3 if we can find the emerald shards first. Though the majority of the time it was just me and my sister killing each other, but like the other modes, you get to attack and freeze time to the other players by collecting rings. However, you can easily find them by digging. I think what sets this mode apart from the other two is that there's a lot more competitive stakes put in. Racing is typically a one-sided landslide, and the mech shooters end so quickly that there really isn't any built-up tension. This mode is way more balanced, and there is a sense of adrenaline when you're both really close to the last emerald shard and searching around and seeing who can find it first. Definitely my favorite out of the bunch. There's also the chow races in karate, and the kart racing. Kart racing is nothing too exciting. Unlike other games like Mario Kart or Team Sonic Racing where you have items and ways to mess with the other players, this mode is just the same as the bare bones single player version, just with 2 people. I wouldn't say it's bad, it's just not really worth playing. So, spoilers for a 20-year-old game up ahead here. Jump to this timestamp here to skip this section. I think everyone knows the scene of Sonic jumping out of a helicopter and how awesome and iconic it was, but like, what about the rest of the game? Okay, so I'm gonna rewind for a sec. So the first Sonic Forces trailer dropped around this time, and it looked a lot more visually intense compared to other entries during the 2010s, and personally, I was pretty excited for this. So after being let down by Force's story, as well as the gameplay, I thought I had, and I'm sure others did as well, was, I wish the story was as good as Sonic Adventure 2. Which brings me here to today. After replaying for this review and having a more critical look, if I could describe the plot to Sonic Adventure 2 with only 2 words, it would be extreme and bloated. So like, Sonic Adventure 1, you had this formulaic Sonic and Tails collecting Chaos Emeralds and stopping Eggman plot, with Chaos, the god of destruction, being the bigger threat. And you had the side plots with Chaos breaking the Master Emerald, causing Knuckles to go find the pieces and fix it. Amy does a thing, and honestly, a really cool revenge story with E-102 Gamma. The game concludes with millions of dollars of property damage and the death of thousands, but Sonic gets to get all gold, fly into some water, and save the day. Now, it's a bit more complicated than how I just put it, but if I can say one thing about the plot of Sonic Adventure 1, was that it was grounded. Maybe that's why the logo has this hideous dirt texture border around it. But Sonic Adventure 2 is what happens when you have a handful of ideas, and instead of picking just one, you use all of them. Wait, political commentary? Okay, let me explain. Taking the Sonic elements out for a second here, with the hero story, you have a plot that has the hero is mistaken for the villain is arrested, jailbreaking, terrorism, galactic terrorism, blowing up half of the freaking moon, resisting authorities, tracking down the President of the United States, going to Egypt, fighting ghosts, fighting rock golems, flying into space, crashing in space, Ex Machinas with no context, getting launched into space, avoiding certain death with Ex Machina, stopping the destruction, but also not really, and a subplot that just throws our boy Knuckles in random places with no context until the second act needs him. All of this happens in the span of 2 hours with zero breathing room to elaborate on the plot, and it just feels like complete whiplash as plot beats come and go. Time-wise, the entire plot takes place within the span of just 2 days. 3 if you count the city escape and Bigfoot battle. The hero story, at its basic level, still focuses on Sonic and Tails stopping Eggman, but with the other key points such as Shadow, the gun military involvement, Knuckles' subplot, Tails' fake Chaos Emerald, the story is just a complete mess. And all of these elements could work if they were just given more time to elaborate on them. I do love the opening cutscene though. It gets right into the action of the game, leaving Sonic to jump out of a military helicopter rather than listen to authorities. Sonic says that cops are no good. I mean, Sonic is the only blue life that matters here. Ah, there it is. The thought of Sonic trying to stop Eggman, but also having to deal with the government stopping him, leaving him to do things his own way, is a really cool structure for a Sonic plot, and it really plays off his character well. Sonic isn't about doing what is considered good, but doing things that he thinks is right to him. However, in the second act, this plot is completely dropped nor resolved. The game sets up that Sonic and Shadow will be at ends with each other throughout the whole story, but they only have 3 interactions with each other. Same can be said with Knuckles and Rouge, but they only interact at the beginning and ending. Knuckles' story isn't cohesive either. The game just places him in random locations until he joins with the rest of the crew. If you're not willing to break me out of prison, are we even really friends? Tails' plot is also missed potential. He, without question, breaks Sonic out of a military base, which is kind of badass, I'm not gonna lie. But, and the game does not tell you this from the hero campaign, Tails gets a Chaos Emerald for saving Station Square from a bomb. The only plot point from Sonic Adventure 1 that was carried over. It would have been really interesting if there was some kind of internal conflict on whether or not betraying the government and the very people who trusted him with the Chaos Emerald was worth saving his best friend who's accused of being a criminal. Towards the third act, Tails just happens to have a fake Chaos Emerald that he made. When did he make it? Who knows? Ex Machinas are honestly my least favorite trope, and if he just had a single level dedicated to him making the emerald or something, I wouldn't have been put off about this as much. Now I can go on and nitpick about every stupid minor thing, like why did Knuckles break the emerald instead of Eggman's machine? How did Amy even get onto the US naval base? Besides Sonic, how did the rest of them get to Egypt in a single day? Why is there a US space shuttle inside a pyramid with not a single Eggman branding? How did they survive this? But I'd be here all day. So instead, I'm going to talk about the things I like. The game really knew how to raise the stakes. So you start off with Sonic getting arrested in not San Francisco, followed by Sonic and friends quickly fleeing an island before Eggman blows it up. You know hundreds of people in wildlife had to have died from this. Upscaling this threat to Eggman hijacking, activating a defunct space station weapon, and I'm pissing on the moon! Leaving the gang 24 hours to track down the president, run to Egypt, fly to space, and try to stop Eggman's weapon from destroying the Earth. I also unironically love this scene with Eggman holding Amy hostage at gunpoint and Sonic comes in all badass, only to get yeeted into space and Tails avenging his supposed death. There's a video done by Zoomzike that summarizes everything great about this scene, and I would recommend checking out. The Dark story, while a bit shorter, is honestly a lot more interesting, and we get to see the same story unravel from the villain's perspective, and I wish a lot more video games did this. Like the hero story, the Dark story wastes no time in getting straight into the action, with Eggman bursting into the military base and reviving Shadow from his cryogenic slumber. As labeled as the ultimate lifeform, he plans to use him to take over the world and build his Eggman empire. Shadow was created on the space colony Ark and was frozen for over 50 years, and is suffering from amnesia, but the only memories he can recall is that he is the ultimate lifeform, and his friend Maria getting violently murdered by gun operatives in an accident. Even in the works of fiction, military and law enforcement is garbage. Filled by anger, his motives are revenge against humanity for the death of Maria. He complies with Eggman to power up the Ark's Eclipse cannon to destroy the world. It requests him to bring all 7 Chaos Emeralds. Unlike Knuckles, who mostly just had his own subplot, Rouge actually has an active role in the story. Rouge is an undercover spy working for Gun, who also has a stake in Eggman and Shadow's plan. She assists the two by helping them locate the remaining Chaos Emeralds. Her mission with Gun is to get intel on Shadow and the Ultimate Lifeform project. However, her primary objective is just to, and by that to take the Chaos Emeralds for herself. The game would make you believe that Rouge is considered a Dark Story character for the fact that she's a gem thief who's out for herself, but really it's just because she works for the government. The 3 of them have their own ideal goals, and the dynamic is interesting, knowing that they all don't see eye to eye and are suspicious of one another.
Now I know who you are. You're that government spy, Rouge the Bat, aren't you?
Okay then, it's a deal. I don't think we've been introduced. I'm Rouge the Bat, but you can call me Rouge.
The events we saw throughout the hero campaign played the same, but we get to see how the villains react. In a few cases, playing through both stories helps paint a better picture of the plot, such as learning how Tails got the Chaos Emerald, something that the hero story should have told the player, or seeing how Eggman acts out when their threat isn't taken seriously. When playing the hero story, Sonic and Tails interfere with Eggman's plans with the President. Despite the hero ending with Sonic stopping the Eclipse cannon, in this version, Eggman gets the final Chaos Emerald from Tails and successfully powers up the Eclipse cannon. The last story starts off with Eggman's plans being undone, as activating the cannon displays a message from his grandfather, Gerald Robotnik. Instead of firing the laser at Earth, like Eggman had planned, the whole colony is now on a collision course towards the planet, which will destroy everything. A recording of his execution and last words are then broadcasted on the Ark and around the globe, informing the world of their inevitable demise and his vendetta for losing everything. This is so stupidly dark and I love it. Following this, everyone besides Shadow regroups, and Eggman brings a diary from his grandfather. The diary goes over the deterioration of his mental stability and how it spiraled out of control, how he intended to use his research for creating the ultimate life form to benefit humanity, only for Gunn to shut it down, killing everyone involved, labeling the strike as an accident, making Gerald look responsible, and most importantly, the death of his granddaughter, Maria. Because of this, he sought revenge for Maria's death, and he had nothing else to live for. While in prison, he was able to finish the Project Shadow by programming the Ark to collide with the Earth once activated, releasing the encapsulized Bio-Lizard, the original prototype of the ultimate life form, and suggestively altering Shadow's memories to carry out his plan. Here's something I didn't know until I was reading the wiki, but Robotnik was imprisoned, and that's actually his writing in Sonic's cell, and the game even hints about this too. This is such a total tone shift from the rest of the game, and I'm absolutely here for this garbage. I like this a lot. It's dark and edgy for a game about rolling around at the speed of sound. And this is actually really good character building. You understand Robotnik and Shadow's motives. They aren't just bad character is bad because bad. The backstory was elaborated a lot more in the game Shadow the Hedgehog.
Damn, not here.
But it just goes to show you that the true enemy all along was the government. In order to stop the Ark from crashing, everyone teams up together to stop the Eclipse cannon, using Knuckles' Master Emerald to reverse the Chaos Emeralds. The player then goes to the final level, the cannon's core, which has you play everyone but Shadow. Content with the inevitable destruction, Amy reminds Shadow of Maria's wishes to make the world happy. Sonic and Knuckles make their way to the cannon's core, only for the Bio-Lizard to emerge. The first time playing this game, the fact that the prototype was this big stupid lizard and that was like the final boss was so far out of left field for me to expect. Though on replay there is a scene of Rouge holding documentation of the prototype, Shadow then fights the ultimate life form prototype. However, before its defeat, the Bio-Lizard warps and fuses up to the front of the cannon and proceeds towards Earth. Sonic and Shadow go super, Knuckles watches awkwardly, the two fly through space and punch a few gross boils, the Bio-Lizard finally dies, and the two manage to chaos control the Ark out of Earth's atmosphere and safely back into orbit. However, at the cost of Shadow's life as he falls into the atmosphere and dies.
Damn, not.
Or until the plot needs him for Sonic Heroes, whatever. But the credits roll and the characters talk to one another about Shadow and their plans to return Earth. And finally, a sayonara to Shadow from Sonic. So, is the plot to Sonic Adventure 2 good?
No way.
But is it a fun time?
Yes.
I know I just spent several minutes dissecting this Frankenstein's monster of a plot, but I still enjoyed the absurdity of this dumb narrative. Is the dudes of the game being a memeable and quotable goldmine and nostalgia clouding my judgment? Probably, but I think all the characters are likable. There was also a grand scope of conflict with increasing stakes. We got to play as Eggman, something we would never see again in a mainline Sonic game. While I do think Eggman also works as a comical villain, I really like this more sinister version of him. I also really enjoy this asymmetrical storytelling, something that the more modern games of the series don't really do anymore. However, the execution of the story leaves a lot to be desired with clunky dialogue, awkward animations, abysmal timing in the English dub, pacing issues, and excessive plot moments with no time to elaborate or explain. The game does try to take itself seriously. To be fair, this was Sonic's second approach at an in-depth narrative adventure, and being a lot more edgy this time around. But I think if they wanted the story to be taken more seriously, then there really should have been more time workshopping the plot more. Who knows, maybe I'm just overthinking a plot to a Sonic game way too critically. Shiro Mikawa, the game's writer, has stated that writing for Sonic Adventure 2 was difficult for him, but said that Adventure 2 is his favorite, as it was the first story he wrote for it and is emotionally attached to it. And honestly, I think that's absolutely wonderful, and I, nor anyone, should be able to take that away from him. Visually, I think Sonic Adventure 2 still holds up really well 20 years later. The character models look solid, despite the lower polygon counts, especially compared to how dated and ugly the original Sonic Adventure's visuals were. The level designs are also really immersive and bring you into the action stages. Just about each level has a counterpart of recycling assets, but no two levels ever feel the same. While not all, most of these are shared between two different gameplay styles and are structured for that specific character. The Sonic, Shadow, Tails, and Eggman stages are also a lot more linear, which is a bit of a setback for speedrunners compared to the Adventure 1's more open, structured, and exploitable layouts. The animations during the gameplay portions for the most part are solid. You feel the speed of the characters running. The cutscenes, on the other hand, are kinda questionable at times. I also absolutely adore the 2D artworks of each of the characters, and I wish Sonic Team would go back to making more artwork like this. I also love the layout for the level select screen. It helps add immersion to each level and distance that each character traveled throughout the story. The UI is also clean and organized. However, out of all the fonts out there, and you choose Comic Sans? So I feel no matter what, whether the game turns out to be amazing or— What is this? Get off! What is this? One of the things that the series has mostly done correct over the past 30 years is having an over-the-top amazing soundtrack that slaps. Sonic Adventure 2's OST by far is one of the best and memorable out of the whole series, and is one of my personal favorite video game soundtracks of all time. Don't try to tell me that you haven't at least sung the lyrics to City Escape or Pumpkin Hill at least once in your life. I know you're lying.
You lie!
Unlike a lot of other video games where each stage has a song that goes with the theme, for example, Emerald Coast in Sonic Adventure 1 is a beach level, and the music complements it well. Sonic Adventure 2's soundtrack, on the other hand, has two prerequisites for each level track: level theme and character. Each character has their own musical style and flair that complements them well. Sonic has a hard rock which goes with his carefree and too cool for you attitude. Tails, who also wants to be much like Sonic, also has a hard rock style. However, his tracks have an electronic distortions which complements him well as a technological genius and mechanic. Knuckles has raps that reflect on his character as an independent and goal-oriented person, protecting the Master Emerald regardless of the cost. And yeah, woo, she's sexy and smooth. Shadow has a more darker and alternative style compared to Sonic, which works for his plight of revenge and mystery. Eggman, like Tails, has an electronic rock score, but his tracks are lower key and industrial, playing into his scientific intellect and sinister style. And Rouge has a jazzy theme which works as her profession as a gem thief and her sassy and classy demeanor. There isn't really a single track within the game's 30+ levels that weren't unpleasant to listen to. Along with the Chow Garden, the score to Sonic Adventure 2 is one of the things that I believe makes the game so memorable 20 years later. The UI sounds and sound effects are also forever embedded into my brain. However, I have an issue with the sound mixing and balancing in some effects, such as the ringing sounds from Tails and Eggman's lasers, the absurdly loud dripping sounds in Aquatic Mine, or the fighter jets flying through the air. Though I guess that one's a little bit more realistic.
I found you, Faker! Faker? I think you're the fake hedgehog around here. You're comparing yourself to me? Huh, you're not even good enough to be my— I'll make you eat those words!
Okay, so we have all been waiting for this. The English dubbing being so ungodly awful and memeable. Lines do not sync up with their cutscenes and characters, and they will cut off from one another before they can even finish each other's sentences. Perhaps this was because this was my first— Sorry, let me start over. Perhaps this was because this was my first exposure to Sonic characters having voices, but I like the voice actors and I think they all fit their roles really well. However, the acting is so directionless and inorganic. But to leave this all on a positive note— So since this video is already stupidly long, I'm just going to note a few differences between the Dreamcast, GameCube, and 2012 ports. The GameCube and HD ports have more quality of life improvements compared to the Dreamcast, improving collision detections, character models, and making the Chow Garden functionable without the Dreamcast's VMU or online capabilities. The The Dreamcast's Dark and Hero Garden were bigger compared to the re-releases. You can also only see your Chao stats if they were dropped off on the Dreamcast's VMU transporter. The GameCube port had a Game Boy Advance transporter, which worked with the tiny Chao Garden feature in Sonic Advance 1 and 2. And the HD ports changed it again, but the transporter now only allowed the player to release their Chaos. The Dreamcast had downloadable content such as Christmas and Halloween costumes and more kart racing tracks, which were absent in the re-releases. The 2012 ports added online leaderboards, 16:9 widescreen at 720p support, and brought back Big the Cat cameos, something that was missing from the GameCube version. This version also removed any billboards and ads from the now defunct Soap. There's a lot more features that I glanced over. I actually re-recorded this bit a second time because it went way too long the first time, but most of them are pretty minor. But it was kind of neat to see some of the differences, especially since I've never played the Dreamcast version before. So, should you play Sonic Adventure 2 20 years later? Yeah, I definitely recommend it. Sonic Adventure 2 still holds the title as my favorite Sonic game, and I had a great time revisiting it. I do think there's a difference between what the game represented when I was younger compared to the game actually is today. Having less responsibilities and games as a child, I had a substantial amount of time to raise chows and replay levels over and over again, which sadly doesn't hold up as well as an adult. Would I recommend 100%ing the game?
No way!
I did have a great time collecting emblems and replaying each of the fun levels and trying to get A ranks. Shout out to Zemdemo for the video guides. I would not have even attempted this without them. However, when the game is at its lowest, getting A ranks felt like such a mind-numbing crawl. While I had fun raising my chows to level 99, doing it for hours on end started to become tedious, though I did force this upon myself. I would say to play this game till whenever you just get bored. However, if you were to play a 3D Sonic game, Sonic Adventure 2 would easily be my recommendation. Sonic Adventure 2 is available for Steam, the Xbox 360 Marketplace, and the PS3 Store. While it's still alive, that is. Or if you can get your hands on a GameCube or Dreamcast copy, I would highly recommend checking it out. If you made it to the end of this video, thank you so much for watching. I truly appreciate it. I know that this has been a very long video, and I appreciate you sticking around. If you enjoyed the video, please be sure to leave me a like and subscribe if you're new. It really helps a lot. And I also want to thank everyone who has recently subscribed to my channel. We are now at 126 subs at the time of recording this. I know it's a small milestone, but honestly, thank you all. I'm glad I can entertain you guys. I promise to have more interviews and more reviews and stuff down the line. I also appreciate just all the positive comments and feedback from the one-shot stuff and others who have checked out my other content. It really means a lot to me. Thank you. But I also planned to have this video out months ago, but I got caught up with work and stuff. But this has been a lot of fun to do. I also had a great time replaying Sonic Adventure 1 and Generations. And and to a lesser degree, Forces, I suppose. But overall, this has been a fun project. I've been working on this one since February, and it feels good to finally have it done. But yeah, I don't have too much else to add. I also have a Twitch at a Fox on the Internet, all one word. I don't have a schedule or anything, but feel free to join that if you wish. But yeah, anyway, so I want to thank you all again. I want to know what your thoughts about Sonic Adventure 2 or my video. This has been a lot of fun. And to you, my friend, I hope that you have a terrific and wonderful day.